Hello everyone, my dear students. I'm teacher Andrei. Today I start a new programming course on Python. It's the first lesson, and Python is a super popular programming language nowadays. If you look at the charts, maybe always Python at the first position or second position. This course doesn't really require any programming experience, but at the same time it's pretty comprehensive. So it's going to consist of 3 parts. In the first part we are going to cover Python essentials. In the second part, object-oriented programming in Python, more advanced programming concepts, and finally the third part, real-life Python. We are going to apply, or we are going to try to apply the knowledge we got to solve real-life programming challenges. So it's comprehensive, at the same time it's concise. My course is going to consist of very short lessons, maybe 10-15 minutes each, but I'm going to publish them quite often, maybe every day. So please subscribe to the channel. This way you're going to be notified about new lessons. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, you need a software to learn a programming language, and we call it Integrated Development Environment, IDE, software for programmers. What you see right now is official Python website, Python community website, python.org, and here you can download Python for Windows or Mac, and many Linux, by the way, other platforms, but many Linux operating systems, they already have Python built in. So this is maybe the simplest choice, the simplest integrated development environment. We are going to use it during the course. However, there are a few other popular integrated development environments you can use to learn Python. For example, you can download PyCharm integrated development environment, or you can use Microsoft Visual Studio or Microsoft Visual Studio Code. So Microsoft Visual Studio may be heavier, it's more professional development environment. Visual Studio Code is leaner, and the advantage is Visual Studio Code is working on many platforms. However, Visual Studio is for Windows only. Okay, so let's say I did it. I downloaded my Python IDE. Why it's called integrated development environment? Because it's all-in-one software. At least 3 components any IDE are supposed to have. You're supposed to have source editor where you type and fix your coding. You're supposed to have compiler because your Python statements supposed to be translated or compiled into binary. commands or machine commands. So we call this compiler, let's say, converting human-friendly language to computer-friendly language. So you have editor, you have compiler, and you supposed to run it. You're supposed to see if your program is working. So we have a testing environment inside any IDE, and we have a debugger, so-called debugger, built-in utility to trace your program execution and to fix issues, errors in programming language. We call it sometimes between us, between programmers, we call those issues, those errors, bugs. Okay, I think it's enough. It's enough to start. We can now open our integrated development environment. By the way, the IDE we are going to use is very basic, very simple. It's just editor, compiler, and tester. However, more advanced IDEs may have other components. They may have graphic editor to develop user interface elements. They may have AI features. They may generate coding for you. They may have version control features, project management features. So this is very often also part of your integrated development environment. However, the one we are going to use is very simple, very basic, so we don't really have to spend time learning our IDE, and we can just start coding. So let me open my IDE. Sometimes it's called IDLE, Integrated Development and Learning Environment, IDLE. And here we are. I have an empty window. I can start. So let's print a message. Hi, Python. Let's, by the way, copy paste to save time. So I select my line. I go after I press Ctrl V. So I select the line. I press Ctrl C to copy, then Ctrl V to paste, and then I modify line 2 and 3. Hi Python. My name is Andrei, and I live in Toronto. I live in Toronto. By the way, I think it's nice to have line numbers. So you can adjust your environment by using Options menu and Configure IDLE command. So I can, let me check where I can turn on or turn off the line numbers. Let me find it. Yes, it's here. If you open Options menu, you see command show line number. So it's quite convenient because now I can tell what line number I'm talking about. Of course, you want to make your coding sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller. It's in the options. Watch how to adjust the size. So if you open settings dialog box, you can choose different fonts and you can choose different sizes. Let's say I'm not satisfied with the 25. I choose 29, and you see now it's bigger. Some programmers, by the way, they like light environment, so they like if their background is not like mine right now, not dark, they like lighter environment. So you can also change it here in configure, and you can because settings dialog box has many tabs or many pages. Look, I'm in the highlights tab, and I choose classic. So classic environment is white, however maybe it's more demanding for your eyes. So let me go back to my dark. Sometimes we call it theme, set of colors you prefer. Highlights, theme. And instead of IDLE classic, I choose IDLE dark. And I press OK. Here we are. Now I can save, of course, my program, or sometimes we call a script. By the way, all the files with your Python code has 2 letters extensions, P, Y. So let me save it. I want to put it on my desktop. I call it first. The extension going to be automatically added. And now I can run it. I can see if my program does what I wanted. If my program type those 3 messages. I a little bit fix, and I save it again. I save the changes. By the way, use shortcuts, Control S, to save changes. If you want to run it, you can do it through menu or through shortcut F5. So if I'm ready, if I want to run my program, I can just press F5 shortcut. And here we are. You see, here that's what my program does. Don't pay attention to the top lines because it's just Python software. It's not you. What you did is this. And you see a second window. So Python IDE or IDLE is working in 2 windows. One window is the editor. Second window is a tester. We call it shell sometimes, or console. Obviously, I can drag those 2 windows. I can adjust them the way I like. For instance, I can put them Let me close, by the way, my web browser to make it simpler, so I can make it like this if you want. So on the left you can type your stuff, on the right you run it, or you can maximize both windows and then switch from one to another. So let's say I want to modify, improve my program, and I want to add the day. The day is Saturday. 4 p.m. So I save my changes, I run it again, and you see now my modified program printed modified message. Now it's not 3 lines anymore, it's 4 lines. So this is basically all I wanted to do for our first introductory lesson. Let me remind you, we covered software, from where you can download software, how it's called, IDE, what components a typical IDE consists of, how to type your code, how to save it, and how to run it, how to test it. So you have editor window, you have shell window or console window. By the way, if you do your testing many times, of course, you see more and more messages in your shell. That means you may have to clean it sometimes. So if I see too much stuff here in my shell, I may just close it and then run my coding one more time. And here we are, you see updated shell window without old messages. So that's how we are going to work with the Python. And next lesson we are going to cover very important term, statement, because any computer program consists of statements. Any computer program is basically a sequence or a set of statements. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed our first lesson. Please subscribe for the channel so you can get notified about new lessons. They're going to be published quite often. All the best to you. Let me close my Python IDLE and let me finish my recording. Bye-bye.